Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this live demonstration of Stacksmith. My name's Matthew Small. I'm Head of Customer Success here at Bitnami, and I'll be taking you through a few slides today, as well as giving you a live demonstration of the Stacksmith tool in action. On the agenda, first we'll introduce Bitnami and the different aspects of our business and company. We'll take a look at Stacksmith for packaging and maintaining your own applications, covering a general overview of the technology, various use cases with a focus on cloud migration, the benefits of using Stacksmith, and how to adopt the tool in the enterprise. We'll also then be providing that live demonstration. We'll be packaging a Java application using AWS and containers. If you're interested in seeing Azure, we will touch upon it today, but we will not be deploying in Azure. We will be providing another follow-on live demonstration in a few weeks where we'll feature Azure deployment. As you have questions, the content of this webinar, please use the Zoom meeting Q&A panel. We'll collect those throughout the duration of the demonstration and address those at the end, along with next steps and a free trial offer. To start with Bitnami's vision, our mission from the very beginning has been to make awesome software available to everyone, everywhere. And our focus is to make it easy to package, deploy, and maintain that software over time. Stacksmith is an extension of our mission and focus as it relates to enterprise applications. Bitnami today provides over 120 different applications and runtimes in the various cloud provider marketplaces. If you've ever gone through to AWS Marketplace or Azure or Oracle or Google or many other cloud providers, and you've searched for any asset, be it a full stack like WordPress or Moodle, backend like MySQL cluster, infrastructure middleware like RabbitMQ, chances are the first or second result you'll see in that cloud provider marketplace has been certified by Bitnami. And what that means is it's been packaged and maintained, and it provides a solid foundation for you to get started with that technology. Stacksmith is a productization of the automation and tooling that we use to maintain that application catalog business with the cloud providers. It's a tool for cloud migration and maintenance of application images, as well as the deployment templates to get them running in the target. We also have a large focus on Kubernetes open source. So if you check out some of our open source offerings, you'll see some key projects like KubeApps, which is a service catalog for Kubernetes, Kubeless, which is function as a service on top of Kubernetes, and we're also a core maintainer of Helm, which you'll see featured in today's demonstration when we deploy to Kubernetes. We'll be focused on Stacksmith today. Stacksmith is a SaaS tool for generating and maintaining images and automation in different deployment locations. You take application, code, and scripts, unmodified as inputs, and Stacksmith builds the required VMs, deployment templates, or containers to actually deploy them on your target platform. We automate this process and optimize it to the target cloud or container platform to make sure that it's using the best fit services and capabilities. We also help you maintain those applications and images over time. We provide you with a feedback loop when system package updates are available, when there's CVEs that affect your application, so that you can be A, made aware that you're affected, and B, provide a nice and easy feedback loop to repackage and redeploy your application in your target. We'll focus in on the use case for cloud migration today. Stacksmith focuses on the concept of replatforming applications. Replatforming is the idea that you go beyond just a lift and shift or a rehost, where you might launch an instance in a cloud provider, copy everything over, image it, and call it a day. That's going to get you to the cloud, but it's not going to help you take advantage of the best fit services that application can now take advantage of. Cloud providers have lots of new services, modern services above and beyond the data center world. And you should modernize the infrastructure around your app to take advantage of some of those. This also stops short of an application rewrite or re-architecture. We're not breaking down things into microservices with this process. That is not to say you shouldn't do that, but this replatforming concept provides you with a middle way. It lets you get your applications there. It lets you optimize those for the cloud so you know that they're running in the best way possible. You can then start the process of taking your high-value applications and re-architecting or rewriting components thereof. When we talk about replatforming and using best fit services, here's an example with Azure. Let's say I have a Java Tomcat application with a database. I'm running that database on bare metal today, but when I put it in Azure, I want to take advantage of a database service, such as MySQL in Azure or CosmoDB. Stacksmith allows me to define what PaaS integrations for the target cloud I want to take advantage of. And it lets me fit in other key services that I may want to leverage, like security tooling, monitoring services, auto scaling, etc. This gives you a nice way to leverage what's the best fit capabilities of Azure. But similarly, if you wanted to move to AWS, AWS has different services with different APIs. And Stacksmith provides the path for you to platform natively to those first-party services as well. Stacksmith is a tool that's going to help you package, deploy, and maintain your applications without lock-in. We provide a full end-to-end automation for the actual packaging and maintenance of the images, as well as the automation templates to deploy them. We let you target multiple clouds and container platforms and maintain portability between them without locking yourself into the cloud provider itself or into Stacksmith. We optimize for the target platform to use the best fit infrastructure and cloud services so you can take advantage of new capabilities you didn't previously have access to. And we help you continuously maintain your repackaging process, building new images, running your canary tests, and deploying your applications continuously. As you look to adopt Stacksmith in your enterprise, Stacksmith will meet you where you are in your DevOps and process maturity model. If you have no automation tooling in place as you're beginning your cloud transition, Stacksmith provides a very comprehensive UI to go in and run this type of packaging process. We'll help you learn some of these DevOps best practices along the way. If you already are very sophisticated with continuous integration tooling, artifact repositories, continuous deployment, and orchestration tooling, Stacksmith can also meet you where you are there, integrating with upstream and downstream tools to provide a comprehensive and automated end-to-end process. It also means you can integrate Stacksmith as you add those features, tooling, and capabilities to your pipeline. So if you're starting today with just an asset repository, you can integrate that with Stacksmith, and of course use our UI to manage your assets, which then are integrated with your repo. Similarly, if you already have some deployment orchestration and CD tooling in place, you might have that tool just pick up the package that Stacksmith creates and deploy it in your target cloud. We talked about the cloud migration use case, in which we're taking applications from the data center to the cloud, from one cloud to another cloud, from data center or cloud to containers, and improving them to the target. There are other major use cases for Stacksmith as well. The application delivery and maintenance framework use case means that operations can enforce best practices, things like tag policy control, network topology, what app types of applications are deployable in what regions and subscriptions. And it ensures that they can support those applications long-term by enforcing the addition of critical operations tools, things like monitoring agents or intrusion detection tools. We also help you fill up a cloud service catalog. if you're using an internal service catalog to deploy cloud services, Stacksmith can provide the assets in a packaged form to allow you to then take those assets and deploy those through your service catalog. It helps you populate those service catalogs with deployable assets that follow that enforced structure and preserve and maintain them over time. Today, Stacksmith has out-of-the-box support for AWS and Azure. We can support Docker containers as well as Kubernetes, including the cloud vendor Kubernetes services. Stacksmith is for Linux applications. We do not currently support Windows apps. And we do have out-of-the-box templates for Java Tomcat, .NET Core, and Node.js. We also include an out-of-the-box template for a generic application, meaning you can take your PHP apps, your Python apps, any other application type, and you can also run that through this packaging process. Let's get to the demo. Here you see I'm logged into the Stacksmith UI. These are applications that you see that I've already previously packaged. These applications we'll come back to take a look at some of the day two operations that you can do with Stacksmith. But the first step we're going to do is package a new application. I'm now using a self-service interface that's designed for an application owner. And as the application owner, I care about what my application is named and the version of my application that I'm packaging. So the first step that I will do is provide this a name. We'll call this Live Demo 23 for May 23rd. And then I'll provide it with an application version. This can be anything that I want as the application owner. This is something that I care about. Let's call it 1.1. At that point, I get to select an operations-defined stack template. The stack template enforces those best practices for the enterprise, and it also follows well-architected best practices from the cloud providers. Our reference architectures do follow these principles, so it gives you a great foundational starting point to begin packaging your applications today. Here are some of the stack template choices that I have in this particular account. I'm going to go ahead and select this Java application with a MySQL database. Operating system selection can also be offered or enforced. I may have a standard golden image in my enterprise that I want to enforce the use of. Or alternatively, I may want to provide different distribution flavors to my end users. I then get to select which target I want to package for. And Stacksmith is a multi-target tool, meaning that I can actually run my application through and package for multiple targets simultaneously. At this point, I'm going to upload my assets. Now, I'm using the Stacksmith UI to do this, and I first will select my WAR file and a boot script to get my application started. These are the only inputs that Stacksmith requires. And while the upload process is being managed by Bitnami SaaS, these assets are actually being uploaded to your cloud account, your AWS or your Azure account. They will be stored in S3 in the case in this example where we're using AWS to package the application. Any assets that you're uploading to or creating with Stacksmith are stored securely within your cloud account. I can also add a build script here if I have any additional application dependencies. I don't in this case, but this gives me some control as an application owner to manage those dependencies over time. Now that my assets are uploaded, I'm going to go ahead and hit create. At this point, we will start up the packaging process. And as you can see, there are two builds that are being created, one for AWS and one for Kubernetes. This log here that's beginning is a live log of the process. This process is happening entirely within your cloud account. The instances that are launched as part of the build and packaging process, the use of the native container building services within that target cloud are all being leveraged. And Stacksmith, as a SaaS tool, is pulling the strings to ensure that that process is completely automated end to end. If we compare the logs between AWS and Azure, you're going to notice that we actually have different events happening because the packaging process is not standard between instances and containers, VMs and containers. So we're actually doing what's natively required to package those assets. In this case, you can see that we're starting to launch an instance in the account. We're adding some tagging to those resources. We've connected via SSH, and we're beginning to add, run our scripts and install our dependencies and system packages. I'm going to let this process continue. And while this application is being packaged, we'll go take a look at some of the other applications that have already been packaged with Stacksmith and some of the day two maintenance operations you can do with the tool. We can monitor the status of our builds here. You'll note there's these two are blinking because this is a build in progress. As you can see, there are other applications that have been built in the past. Here is one that I've packaged this morning. And you can see the output logs fully completed, as well as the system package manifest for everything that was packaged into this application. I can download this package manifest and I can or export it to another tool. I can also, of course, download these logs and export them to other tools. Now that this application was packaged, I can also download the required Helm chart to deploy it in Kubernetes, or use the CloudFormation template to launch it in AWS. Let's take a look at an older application. Here's an application packaged back in February. As you can see, when we click on System Packages, in addition to my manifest, I have updates available. These updates are monitored by Stacksmith to ensure that you are both notified and made aware of what updates are available to your system packages, and that you have a quick and easy process to repackage this application and include those latest system package updates. Once you've repackaged the application in your target, you then have the opportunity to deploy your canary, as well as set up your, run your test harness or any sophistication that you have there. And at that point, you can promote that new application into production. We can even look at an older application here. If we take a look here, we can see how two types of applications are managed. Or excuse me, two types of asset, build and application assets are managed. Here you can see a much longer history of our build spec. I have builds dating back all the way to December. And I have version 1.0 of my code considered. As you see, we're then iterating on various builds, but we're also iterating on the code version. And this illustrates that Stacksmith can both maintain those packages and the builds, as well as create new versions of my application. We talked about repackaging here, and as you can see, this was performed this morning. And the latest update has no system packages available. Of course, I can look back in time and see the types of assets that were available at that time. I can even download my own old deployment assets or deploy my old images or containers. If I want to iterate on my application version, I can edit the configuration of my application. I can supply a new application version and repackage with a new code file. We'll take a look at our application. It does look like the demo gods were not smiling upon me, and we've had a failed build here. We had some issues with uploading the artifacts to our asset repository. So as you can see, the logs are very helpful here that I can troubleshoot this failed build, make any desired changes, and run that, repackage that again. It's possible that this was a transient error in the cloud provider, a long-running API job. We're using the Elastic Container Repository in AWS. So I'm going to give this a quick repackage, see if that gets us successfully deployed package, see if that solves the problem. As we look at AWS, you'll note that we're actually just arriving to our complete state here. It's going to go through some cleanup steps. There's assets that are created during the packaging process. What we need to do is clean up all those assets to ensure that what you have are only the outputs that you need. You don't need your accounts being littered with other build assets that were created as part of this process. While we're waiting for that one to finish up so we can deploy the CloudFormation template, what I'm going to do is quickly pop over and show you an example with Azure. Here you see a Spring Boot application that was packaged with Azure yesterday. And I have a very similar experience. I have Kubernetes here. I have my system package manifest and my logs. These logs for Azure are going to look different than the logs for AWS because here we're actually using Azure's native container build service for this example. So again, even the container builds happen securely within your own cloud account. As we look at the ARM template output, I can take the ARM template and the images that were created. Those are stored securely in my blob storage in Azure, and I can launch those on the target platform. So as you can see, you can take applications, the same inputs, and you can package them for multiple platforms in cloud-native ways. As we pop back to our demo, I'll show you the deployment of a package here. As we're waiting for this one, we're still going through some work, it looks like. I'll show you the experience on this one that I packaged earlier today. Here in AWS, you can see I can download this CloudFormation, or I can launch it directly in AWS. Following that link leads me directly to the AWS console and the CloudFormation template launch process. I'm showing you a manual way of doing things through AWS console. Of course, at this point is when that CloudFormation template could be picked up by a downstream orchestration tool and deployed. As we go through this process, I can give my stack a name. I can make some selections. These selections and parameters were all defined as selectable in the stack template. So I can actually use this to define what type of options I want to give the consumer of this deployment template to configure. For instance, I may not want to offer the option of launching an M524XL instance because those are really, really, really expensive. And instead, maybe I want to curate to specific instance classes that are the best fit for the type of application that I'm packaging, and then make that as a stack template available to my developers to package their applications with. One of the other things that the boot script in our example asked for was a database root password because we are setting up and configuring a new MySQL database. So I can supply one here as an input. I will need to add some additional options here, such as my SSH key. I'll need to supply an application source. I'll make that available from the internet. And here you can start to see some advanced settings, including things like configurations for RDS. Because we're launching this application in RDS, the database as an RDS instance, I do now have access to the value add features of RDS over running this directly on instances, such as setting up multi-availability zones. For the sake of my pocketbook, I'm not going to set those up for this demonstration. If we hit next, that will lead us to the CloudWatch alarm configuration. I can define any monitors here. I'm not going to do that for this demo. Hit next again. Now I'm reviewing my inputs, and I'll hit create. This leads me to a stack template a CloudFormation template creation. And this again is the standard AWS portal experience. Looking at that Spring Boot application that I deployed this morning, to give you a sense of the types of resources that are provisioned by the CloudFormation template. You can see everything from auto-scaling groups to RDS, to ELB, to VPCs, to security groups, everything that this application needed to run in the target. So the inputs that I supplied to Stacksmith were the unmodified application code and a boot script, enough logic to get my application running on Linux. What I get output is enough logic to get the application running in AWS. It's a standard CloudFormation template format. Of course, you can review that. You can make any additional post modifications to that if need be, but it provides you a way to also maintain those over time rather than writing them. Stacksmith can become your template maintenance as well. So we pop back to Stacksmith here. We'll take a look at our apps. It does look like now we have 2 successful packages. That was a transient error with Elastic Container Registry. It's nice that my logs caught it, and you saw how easy it was to repackage this application to address it. I now have the same outputs here that I can launch this CloudFormation in AWS. It's the same inputs that I just showed you on that other CloudFormation stack. Let's instead take this application that we packaged and let's deploy it on Kubernetes. So at this point, I'm going to take my Helm chart. Helm is the package manager for Kubernetes, and it's analogous to a CloudFormation template when I'm deploying containers. I've downloaded that locally in this case. Of course, I can hook this up to any asset repository, chart museum, artifactory, where I might be storing these. I may then have that presented to my users through service catalog like Kubeapps, also from Bitnami. Here I've simply downloaded it, and I'm running a local Kubernetes cluster on my machine, a Minikube cluster. Of course, this Helm chart can target any Kubernetes service from any of the cloud providers that support Helm. So Azure Container Kubernetes Service, AKS, GKE, the forthcoming EKS from Amazon, all of those can be targeted with these Helm charts. And at this point, I'm going to do a Helm install. It's in my downloads folder here. Live demo 23. As you can see, this is just a tarball. It's ready to be deployed. I will give it a name. And as you can see, I've requested and currently am creating 2 containers. So just like in AWS, where we created an instance running our application in an auto-scaling group, as well as an RDS backend, because those are the best fit services for AWS. Here in Kubernetes, I don't have something like RDS. So I'm actually taking a MySQL container and I'm deploying that. Of course, you can make this reference architecture anything that you would like. MySQL could be run in a clustered format, for example, in Kubernetes as well. You can also actually leverage the Open Service Broker with Helm charts. Open Service Broker is an open source project from Microsoft Azure that's already pre-integrated with Bitnami projects like Kubeapps and allows you to define the use of cloud services like RDS in a Helm chart. This takes about a minute to deploy. We can check on our status by doing a Helm status live demo. Great. I have my 2 containers now running. Those 2 containers can now serve my application. So at that point, I'm just going to forward to this application on my local machine. We'll go to 127 on port 8080 here. Pop back to terminal. You can see it's handling that connection. Here's my application running. I can input my name here to show that there's a database attached to it, and we now have a fully deployed application in Kubernetes. This is identical to the application that was deployed by the CloudFormation stack. Here I would take a look at the outputs. We'll open that in a new tab. And here you can see that I've got a deployed app. Again, with a database. So from one set of inputs, a WAR file and a boot script, I have an application running in 2 targets in less than 30 minutes. This gives me the ability to package and deploy and iterate on my applications very quickly, and helps you modernize some of your process and adopt things like concepts and immutability for your images and your deployment templates. As we zoom back out to Stacksmith, I now have a record of my asset. I can repackage this asset over time. I can iterate on the versions, as we've already shown with some of these old applications, and I can continue to maintain that application long term. What we're not showing you is the notifications that you actually get when new system packages are updated and available, and any CVEs upstream. You may have caught the latest CVE, Spectre 2.0 it seems. That would be a great use case for Stacksmith. As soon as those upstream repositories have that package available, you can repackage your application in Stacksmith to patch your systems for that kernel side channel attack that was just disclosed. At this point, we'll pop back over to the deck and we can address any questions from the audience. Before we do that, I did want to let you all know that there's a free trial available for Stacksmith. You go to stacksmith.bitnami.com to sign up for a new account. We're also offering a free white glove app migration available to any attendees of this webinar. So please contact me and my team at customersuccess@bitnami.com for access into that. What that white glove app migration is will help you take your first application and run it through the process, and we'll help you get that all set up. And at that point, we can start your 30-day free trial, show you the long tail benefit of monitoring for system package updates and repackaging your applications, and plan your additional application migrations. With that, we'll open up for questions. My colleague, Michael Murphy, will be reading from the QA and will be providing those answers. If you do have a question, if you joined a bit late, please post that question in the QA panel for Zoom. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Matt. That was a great overview. Demonstration. A couple questions have come in. The first one is just a clarification. You talked about the images and deployment templates that Stacksmith creates being stored in the user's cloud account. Does this mean, though, when a user stops using Stacksmith?
Great question. So since we're storing all of these assets in your target account, these assets stay in your target account. There is no change or dependency that Stacksmith makes to these assets to depend on Stacksmith to launch them. So once they're packaged with Stacksmith, they are in the cloud native format, a CloudFormation template and an AMI, an ARM template and an Azure Machine image, and all of that is yours to use forever.
Great. Thanks. Second question, can you describe a little bit what the purchasing model is and roughly what the costs for someone to use Stacksmith are?
Another good question. Stacksmith charges by the application with a minimum of 10. Stacksmith starts at $15,000 per year, and that includes all the features that we discussed today, including the long tail maintenance.
Great, thank you. If a customer, if I was interested in integrating this with an orchestration tool or orchestration tools, how would I do it? You showed here a graphical user interface, a GUI version of Stacksmith. Is this the only option available?
Great question. So we talked a little bit about that in this slide here, where we talked about integrating with CI tools and repositories and orchestration and continuous deployment tools. There is a REST API into everything that I've shown you today in the UI. We practice API first development here at Bitnami for Stacksmith, and that allows us to make these features and capabilities available programmatically as well. So for example, rather than uploading your code directly through the Stacksmith interface, Stacksmith could simply pull that from your CI tool, a compiled code file from your CI tool. Similarly, we could push that to your asset repositories as well.
Great. And final question, is there, if I don't have an AWS or an Azure cloud account, is there a way to trial Stacksmith anyway?
Yeah, great question. If you don't have an organizational access to add an account to perform the packaging steps, please reach out to me and my team at customersuccess@bitnami.com, that email address there, and we can get you set up with a sandbox account. That is not a 30-day trial, to be clear. That is a 7-day free trial made available using Bitnami Cloud Credentials.
Right. Thanks, Matt. There's one other question that just came in through the Q&A. Can I use Stacksmith with a managed Kubernetes service from Google, Azure, or Pivotal?
Great question. Yes. You will get the full ability to use that Helm chart deployment process in any of those that you've mentioned.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Well, thank you all very much for your attendance today. I do look forward to speaking with you about your application migration and maintenance requirements. Please do contact me either at customersuccess@bitnami.com, or you can reach me direct at mattsmall@bitnami.com. I look forward to speaking with you then.